Hello everyone, welcome to Module 1, which is dog training readiness. We're going to talk about the process of getting your dog ready for dog training and all the steps that is required before we teach any specific behaviors. My name is Fabian Romo and I'm going to be your instructor today. There are 3 phases to getting your dog ready to train. One of them is the acclimation process. The second one is finding the reinforcer and the food that your dog's gonna want and actually work for. The last part is going to be the relationship and how to bond with your dog. All right, so let's talk about the acclimation process. There are a lot of times where dog owners participate in group classes, private sessions, participate in boarding trains, and even dog trainers training their dogs for sport or in different environments. One of the things that they never really think about is the acclimation process for their dog. Acclimation is the ability for a dog to be comfortable in the environment. Think about it as you're showing up to a party, you don't know anybody there, you're asked to socialize right away and just feel comfortable. And often that's not the case. Over time, and the longer you spend at that party and you get to know people and you run into people you know, things seem a little familiar, you are now more comfortable and therefore able to socialize. If you're training a dog at home, or if you're a dog trainer and training a dog at a facility, or if you're a sports competitor and you're showing up to a new club, you really have to think about whether or not your dog has been in similar environments and whether or not they're comfortable in those environments. Every acclimation process is very different. Some dogs, depending on their backgrounds, may struggle to come inside of buildings, especially commercial buildings. Some dogs that have never been in a home, they struggle with the freedom that a home has. They struggle with how silent the home is. And you start seeing some signs of anxiety, right? The first part to understand about the acclimation process is that it's not just a one-time get your dog out and let them check things out, and then the dog should miraculously feel better about the situation. That's not the case. Some dogs that are very confident or have had a lot of training since they were puppies, they're able to generalize and train very quickly. But if your dog hasn't had those opportunities, that's the first thing we have to address. So let's talk about what the acclimation process looks like for different types of dogs. If you have a puppy and it's 8 weeks old, and you took it everywhere, you went to the patios, you went to the park, you're in a big metropolitan city like here in Chicago, then you can expect the dog to know the environment very well and be ready to train pretty quickly. If you have a rescue dog that's never had those opportunities, then what you should do is treat it like an 8-week-old puppy. So if you've had the dog for 1 week, I would like to say, treat it like a 1-week-old puppy. It just needs a lot of attention. If you follow that process and you treat your rescue dog like a puppy, you're going to put him in a position to succeed and experience new things in a very positive manner. Let's talk about dogs that struggle in the acclimation process simply because of genetic predisposition or experiences that they've had in those environments. In those situations, dogs tend to get very anxious. What we like to do is spend a lot of time in the exposure, not interacting with them, but allowing them to take in the environment. And that's such an important thing. If a dog comes in here for a boarding train or a dog that's training with me that fits that category, the last thing that I want to do is ask it to pay attention to me or ask it to explore an environment they don't feel comfortable in. The sessions for me look something like bring the dog out, have them check everything out, they stare, they look at things, they don't interact with them, cool. Let's put the dog away, give them some rest, and then we can do that again, over and over again until we start seeing progress with that individual dog. So let's talk about the acclimation process as it relates to exposure. Exposure means I want you to experience the environment. I don't always want you to interact with the environment. When we take a dog out to the park, they are experiencing the world. When they're going out in the city and you just got the dog or it's a puppy, our job is to kind of follow them around and allow them to sniff things here, become familiar with different objects. We don't want them to go up to a kid and jump on the child. We want them to look at them, not be scared, feel neutral, and then we can build a positive association later. Check everything out, take it in, understand it. Don't always interact with it. As we move on through this course, we're going to use engagement and disengagement drills, meaning we ask the dog, hey, come check in with me, we're gonna play. You're free to explore the environment after we're done with this session of engagement. If we teach our dogs and we allow the dogs to have too much fun with the environment, they think that by interacting with the environment, they're going to trigger our engagement with them. We don't want a dog that comes in and checks in with us and then can't wait to go and mess with one thing because that's going to cause our attention to follow them. We want the dog to be familiar with everything in the environment. We don't want a dog to interact with everything in the environment. So how do we know that our dog has acclimated to the environment? What we want to see in a dog that's been acclimated to a new environment and is ready to train is they are able to take food in that environment, meaning that they enjoy the treats or whatever positive reinforcer we have with us, or they enjoy playing with us in that environment, or they enjoy belly rubs in the environment. Regardless of what it is, we want to see a very confident dog that is not nervous and not shaky and shows a neutral predisposition that we can then build on. All right, so some of you guys are probably thinking, what happens if my dog doesn't like food, or he's a picky eater, or refuses to take food in the environment? Those are super common questions that a lot of dog trainers ask and a lot of dog owners ask. The reason we want to fix the food issue is mainly because they have to find the reward reinforcing. That's the whole idea of dog training. To some degree, we are showing the dog a little bit of a carrot, and they have to want that carrot to do the behaviors. If they don't want that carrot, we don't have dog training. We're gonna be making our dogs do things, and it's a very common thing that happens all the time. You show up, the dog doesn't want to take the food, and then you make them do the place, and then you make them do the sit. And the entire time you're doing that, you're making the dog and you're making training unenjoyable, but you're also not getting long-lasting results. There are a couple of things that you could do immediately to have your dog develop the desire for the food that you have. One, you can change the food. Dogs tend to get used to eating the same food over and over again, and they get a little bored. So changing the diet and transitioning to something new may have a different feeling and sensation for them that motivates them to work for food. Two, you can reward or you can use higher value food in training. We like to use a lot of freeze-dried kibble or a lot of freeze-dried food or something that they normally wouldn't get so often to motivate them for the things that we're going to ask them to learn. That's a very important thing because learning things is challenging. We want to make sure that the compensation in training is of higher value than the work that we ask the dog to do. That's going to make sure that they perform and they always do what we ask them to do. Okay, so let's talk about something that's very difficult for people, and that's what happens if your dog is overweight. That is a serious question, mainly because if they are overweight and they don't do a lot of activities and we're always offering food, they're never going to find the value in food. Losing weight is something that's going to happen in order for them to develop the interest in food. It can be something that takes a little bit of time to accomplish. Whenever I have a dog that needs to lose weight, what I like to do is take them out for plenty of walks. Sometimes I run them on the doggy treadmill. If you're familiar with that, you can do that. And I start creating rituals around food. Creating a ritual around food helps a lot, just because not only is your dog having a little bit of a calorie deficit, probably doing a little more exercise, and at the same time, building the next step of training, which is engaging with me with food. When you have that window to eat food, once it closes, you don't have access to food anymore. And that can happen at home when you put down the food bowl for 2 to 3 minutes, the dog doesn't do it, you pick it back up. That starts to happen in training when we say, hey, are you ready to train? The dog is very engaged with us for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we say, all done, and then we put that food away. That starts creating the scarcity idea around food and builds that food drive for your dog, which is ultimately going to be very important for training, regardless if it's a puppy or a behavioral case. Ultimately, the goal is for your dog to lose weight. There needs to be a little bit of a calorie deficit every single day. You can also feed less food at a time. So if your dog is eating 3 cups a day and needs to lose a little bit of weight, maybe consider doing 1 cup twice a day. And that's a deficit of 1 cup. And by natural process, the dog will start losing weight. If you have concerns about your dog's weight or the process to getting them to lose weight, please take the time to contact a canine nutritionist. I'm not an expert, and I can only suggest what I have done and what has worked for me. The final thing to note about dog food is that we will be using it in training. As we are conditioning behaviors and conditioning reward cues, we will be escrowing their total amount of food for the day and using it strictly during training. Not only is that going to create a bit of a hungrier dog, but it's also going to create value in you. Meaning, hey, you only have access to food when we're training. By nature, that's going to mean that you are the focus of their activity, and that's going to amplify your results. This is a super important step. You have to remember that this is a conditioning process, meaning that we're only going to escrow the food for a certain amount of time over the next couple of weeks until your dog has the behaviors that you desire. Once we have that, then we can go back to some of our general practices. I hope that's easier for you to stomach the changes that you have to make with your dog. But remember, it's temporary. We're gonna get the results that we want, and then we're gonna be able to be happier and go back to our general activities. The last step of getting our dogs ready to train is the bonding process. The process of having a good relationship with a dog, it's important for all aspects of training. It's important for sport training, raising a puppy, working with a behavioral case, whether it's human aggression or dog aggression. They all have to have that relationship with you, and they have to really like you in order to listen to you. That's gonna prevent all sorts of problems in the future, meaning that your dog's not gonna be concerned about working with you. And if we are working on challenging behaviors, we wanna make sure that the dog is focused on the challenge of the behaviors, not on the challenge of working with their handlers or unfair treatment from us. I understand that sometimes frustration can happen with people, but we wanna make sure that we eliminate that in dog training. In this process, we will build a great relationship with our dog, but also make sure that we have the results that we want. We're not looking to consistently aid our dogs or consistently assist our dogs. We also don't want to be harsh with them. This is where we create that strong balance where we can provide direction, we're both having fun, and the dog ultimately has an enjoyable experience training with us. I also want to emphasize the importance of these skills in getting your dog ready to train. This is the part where we prevent future frustrations, future issues with our dogs. It is the foundation in which we will build all of the behaviors and build future relationships. The last point I'm going to make, if your dog is not taking food and is not comfortable in the environment in which you're training it, don't move forward with training. It's going to taint the overall feeling and sensation of the training and what we're trying to accomplish. Whenever there is less stress for a dog, they're going to be more willing to take food and engage with you in the new environment. So that trust factor that you have with your dog is very important. The stronger that bond is, the easier training will be. It will also be good for you to build that relationship with other dogs because that's a skill that you need to develop. When you develop that skill, you're gonna realize that it gets easier and easier for you to develop new relationships that are positive with new dogs, therefore amplifying the success of your training. Okay, so let's talk about engagement. Engagement is a term that is used to define the dog's attention on us from their perspective. When a dog is working with me, interacting with me, taking my food, playing with me, that is when the dog is engaged with me, and that's what we call engagement. When I tell the dog that we're done training, or I use a phrase, all done, that is when we ask the dog to disengage and we let them know that the activity is over. I like to compare it to turning your car's engine on. We're gonna go somewhere, so we crank on the engine, it turns on, we drive somewhere, and then we turn it off. That turning on of the engine is what we will call engagement with the dog. We're asking it to come to life and say, hey, we're going to do something interesting. We'll have a dog that maybe is sleepy and relaxed, isn't really doing much. Then we say that engagement cue, and then they kick in the action. They're like, I know what that means, and I'm excited about it. We do our training, and then we turn off the engine, but we say, all done. Disengage, go do something else, or go do dog things, whatever that may be. Creating this pattern will create the confidence in your dog to truly understand when they're training, and it'll also create a reliability from your perspective that your dog's listening to you and is able to learn new things. A lot of people are concerned, am I going to ask my dog to engage every single time I'm going to ask it to do something? The answer is no. These are training wheels that we're gonna use to get the dog to a point in their training where when you ask them to do something that happens to be in between the engagement and disengagement, they're just gonna kick in the gear and do it because they learned it in a very specific moment in time between point A and point B. Through this process, we wanna make sure that listening to you and responding to what you ask becomes second nature to the dog. When we're training in between engagement and the disengagement points, we want to make sure that your dog is passionate, energetic, interested, and happy because that passion is going to push into their behaviors and how they execute those behaviors. If you want a dog that's happy and confident and does the things you ask them to do when you do so, you want to make sure that engagement and disengagement exist, and then they are also built up in the center of that, meaning that they get a lot of food, they get a lot of reward, it's very easy, they have a lot of success, because they're gonna need it as training gets more complicated. One of the things that you'll notice as you train more dogs, and if you're a professional trainer, is that when you are capturing a behavior or when you are teaching that behavior, you're also capturing and teaching a certain emotion and underlying sensation for the dog. Meaning that if you are a bit of a scary person and the dog is concerned and does the behaviors that you ask them to do because they're a little concerned of you, they will look that way. If the dog is happy, it's eager to please, and wants to train with you, then that's also gonna show in their behaviors. So how you train them in between point A and point B is going to matter a lot, and they will show in their general predisposition how they feel about training and how they feel whenever you ask them to do something. When we ask our dogs to engage with us, we are opening up a window of opportunity, meaning after this phrase, you are now able to receive food from me, play with me, interact with me in a very fun and learning manner. Then when we say our disengagement cue, we are closing that opportunity and we're saying that opportunity is over and you're gonna have to wait for the next one. Let's choose a phrase that we're gonna use to ask our dogs to engage with us. I like to keep it simple and I use my dog's name. Other people say, are you ready? Or they say the dog's name and are you ready? Or they can say goofy things such as Skittles and bananas. It's just a phrase you can just about use anything. You can even use a clicker, you can use different things in your environment. However, you have to understand that once you choose that phrase, it is your engagement cue. If you don't want to open up that window of opportunity, do not use that phrase, because you will start to see that your dog will respond to it. You're gonna do nothing because you weren't paying attention, and then you're gonna undo your training. So whatever that phrase is, make sure that it's not something that's commonly used. My engagement cue is my dog's name, simply because I like to give it meaning right from the get-go, right from when they're puppies. So when I start structuring behaviors, I say the dog's name, which has meaning, and then I give them the behavior that I want them to do, which also has meaning. So no word is wasted. They both have meanings, and that tends to amplify the results. When you first start asking your dogs to engage with you, you have to remember that staying focused on you is a skill. Just like you being focused at the computer or the show you're watching or the work that you have to do. That's a skill as well. When we're asking a dog to pay attention to us and work with us, we only have so much time before they disengage. And we want to make sure that they don't disengage before we ask them to do so. Because then at that point, we're teaching the opposite, is take as much food as you want and then leave whenever you want. We want to make sure that a dog is left wanting to interact with us further whenever we say all done. That's going to create that inner desire for them to stay focused on us and constantly wait for an opportunity to interact with us and continue receiving the food or the rewards they've been getting. Make sure you do not force your dog or beg your dog to engage with you. It is very common for people to see their dog disengage and then they ask them, hey, come back, interact with me. What ends up happening is you're begging the dog, and so the dog is going to not only disengage from you, but know that you are going to call them back and give them food. We want to avoid that behavior chain, because what you are teaching is for them to disengage whenever they want. We also want to make sure that if a dog's on leash or in a training collar, we don't force engagement, because anything that is forced and you make the dog do is not training. And it will not yield any benefits for you if you make the dog do things that they don't want to do. We want to make sure that they understand that it's convenient, that we are the good guys, we are giving the rewards, that working with us is very convenient for them. As cheesy as that may sound, that's the best way to go. I'm not a very foofy trainer. I don't really cheerlead a lot. I help my dogs as much as necessary and as little as possible. That's ultimately what's going to create that strength in the relationship, but also what gives you the results at the end of the day. All right, guys, first, I want to thank you for sticking around this long and dealing with all the terminology. It is definitely a lot to take in when you're first getting to dog training, or this is the first time structuring your training sessions with your dog. This is gonna save us a ton of time as time goes on. Once we're done with this module, we really expect everyone to know the terminology, and then we're teaching behavior sequences and a ton of other stuff. All right, so let's get on to the next thing. Let's cover two new terms. We have the term marker, and then we have the term cue. And the marker is all things reward-based. To summarize it, it's an indication to the dog that a behavior has been complete, therefore they get the reward. A cue is the behavior itself. Sit, down, place. So we have a marker, which is a word that indicates a reward, and then we have a cue, which is another word that to them means the behavior that you want them to do. So let's talk about markers. In this training, we're gonna cover 3 different markers, although there are a plethora of markers that you can have, but we're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna use good, we're gonna use yes, and we're gonna use get it. Those 3 words will mean 3 different things. Good means I will bring the reward to you, so stay doing whatever it is that you're doing. This is often used in a place. This is often used when a dog's walking nicely next to me, or anytime we're trying to stabilize a behavior. Whenever we're saying good, we want to make sure that our reward is predictable. So a set amount of food, meaning 1 kibble or a handful of kibble, whatever it is, but it needs to stay consistent and it needs to be brought to them. When we use the marker yes, we want the dog to leave the behavior and come to us and take food. If I send the dog to a place and I say yes, the dog needs to leave the place and come to me and get food. And that's meant to create an active repetition scenario where we're focusing on them getting on there and coming right back to me. Therefore, I'm doing a lot less work and they're doing most of the work running back and forth. Also, when we're using the marker yes, we want to make sure that we have a higher value item that generates a little bit of excitement. That could mean that sometimes it's a toy, a different type of treat, or also different amounts of that treat to create kind of like the gambling aspect of things. Meaning, are they going to give me a lot or are they going to give me very little? And so that kind of activity creates a lot of passion and a lot of drive for the dog to complete the behavior. The third marker we're going to use is get it. And when I say get it, I'm going to toss a piece of food or I'm going to toss a toy that they like and they're going to chase after. And so I will play the get it game. I call their name, I say get it. I call their name again, I say get it. I call their name and maybe I'll say yes. and change up the routine. So those 3 markers are very important because one of them is going to create predictability and stability in the behavior, and that's the marker good. The marker yes is going to make things fun. They get to go into a behavior and then come out of it for food. That amount of food changes, and it can also mean a toy randomly. So that level of excitement makes that yes or that marker very valuable and often creates instability in the behaviors. So when we want the dog to be fast, we want to use a lot of yes, a lot of toys, a lot of food. When we want the dog to be stable, we want to use a lot of good. So a lot of room service, us bringing food to them, and therefore stabilizing and waiting for us to bring that food. When we want to play a game or buy ourselves some time, we can use get it. Say I am luring a dog and teaching a behavior and I'm about to run out of the food that I have. That last piece of food, I'm going to say get it, and I'm gonna toss that piece of food away from me, giving me time to refill my pouch or refill my handful so that I can go back to training when they come back to me. So all of those 3 markers have a very specific purpose that you will use in your training en route to teaching new behaviors. To further expand on markers, you have to understand that markers can also mean a couple of different things. Reward placement, so where they're gonna get a food. So when we say get it, we know that they think they're gonna get food away from you. We would call that an indirect marker. When we say yes, we know that they're gonna get a direct reward, meaning they're coming at us to get food or a toy. That means that their food and their toy is on us, and so therefore they expect it with us. So if you say yes, the dog's gonna sit in front of you and say, where's my food, where's my toy? If you say get it, the dog may turn around and say, hey, where's my food, where's my toy, right? So it can mean where they're getting the reward. It also means what kind of reward they're getting. If they're getting a tennis ball or they're getting a tug, you could indicate that via how you introduce your marker and also the consistency of how you use that marker. So if I can work on a specific behavior, have a dog sit, and then I can say ball, grab the ball from the back of my vest, and I can throw the ball for them. I can also say yes, and that means they expect the ball to just be chucked out in front of them for them to grab it. I can say get it, and they can run away, and I can throw the ball as well. So a marker is just capturing the behavior sequence that it takes for them to receive that reward. To recap, good, yes, and get it. Good means stay there, I will bring food to you. And often it's meant to make a stable dog. They stay there, they wait for you, there's no anticipation. Yes means come to me and take food, come to me and take the ball or whatever toy I may have. When we say yes, the dog often comes running straight at us. So we use that activity for repetition. I send the dog to do the behavior and then I yes them back. They are very willing to get into the behavior simply because they get the reward very fast after that. Good, stay there, I will bring food to you. 3 is get it. So we're going to toss a piece of food, they're gonna go and grab it, and then they're gonna come back to us when we call their name, and we're also gonna reward that. So that's used to buy us time, and that's also used to break up the activity a little bit and make it a little fun. Some other things that can be rewards, a low-level stimulation on an e-collar could mean a reward. So if a dog has an e-collar on and we're heading in that direction with training, a low-level sensation can mean, hey, you're getting food. If you're using a prong collar or a training tool and you put the prong collar on them and you give a light tug, that can also mean a reward. So I want to make sure that everyone keeps their mind open to what a marker can be, because it will only aid your understanding of the dog's training. It would only expand what you can achieve with your dog. So here's a very important step. How do we introduce a marker? We do that through classical conditioning. For example, if you only listen to a song when you're happy, eventually just listening to that song will make you happy, even though nothing else has changed. So for our dogs, if we use a word of our choice and then follow it with reward or something they like, food, a toy, etc., through that repetition, they're going to associate that word with I'm getting that toy, or I'm getting that food, or this is happening. And that's what classical conditioning means. This goes to emphasize previously in our video about how the dog must want the food that you have. It must be reinforcing, they must love it, they must like the reward that you're trying to train them with. If they don't like the reward, you're gonna have a very hard time training a dog or even classically conditioning a cue or a marker. All right, so let's envision the dog is sitting in front of me and I wanna condition the marker good. I will start in a quiet environment. The dog's been acclimated to the environment, knows that I have food and they are interested in the food that I have. So the dog's sitting in front of me and I would do something like this. Good, offer the food. Good, offer the food. Good, offer the food. All done. And by repeating that process, the dog's gonna understand good means stay there, I will get food. And then we'll generalize that in future training. The same goes for yes, the same goes for get it. If I say yes and I step backwards and have them chase the food, through repetition, the dog's gonna wanna move forward and take the food anytime that I say yes. Same thing for get it. I show them the piece of food and I toss it off to the side. The dog understands when he says get it, he's then going to toss a piece of food and then I'm going to chase the food. Sooner or later, you're gonna see the dog hear get it, turn their head, and then we'll toss a piece of food. And we'll make sure that the dog has that kind of a response for every single marker that we've taught. If we say good from a distance and we're walking to the dog to give them food and they don't seem very excited, we may be concerned that the marker is not charged or doesn't have any value. If I say yes and the dog isn't anxious to get the reward, we may ask ourselves, is this marker conditioned and is it functional? Without these three things, we can't move on to other training. Another thing that I want to point out is that we can use anything as a marker, right? Sensation, something that you're saying. We can also use a clicker, which is a very common form of a marker. We can click, we can toss a piece of food, we can click, we can give them a food, or we can click and move backwards and give them food. But once we give that association, it can only have one association. It cannot be all three. So if you're using a clicker, it's either a click release, a click stay there, or a click get it. We will be using clickers in future, more precise training. Now we've covered the acclimation process, we've covered engagement, and we've covered our markers. So let's go put them into action. Hey guys, welcome back to Module 1, which is engagement and teaching markers. Today, we're getting ready to get our hands on dogs and actually start working with them. Before we start doing that, we want to make sure that we have everything that we need to have a successful training session. That includes having the right training gear and the right food supplies or the right reinforcer for your dog, whether it be a toy or food. Today, what I'll be using is freeze-dried. One of my favorite lures to use in training is the Steve's Real Dog Food, the beef recipe, just because it doesn't have a lot of residue on it. It isn't very dusty versus a lot of freeze-dried can have a lot of dust and you start sprinkling it all over the place, which ultimately acts as a distraction for your dog in training. The more food you drop, the more enticed they are going to be to not pay attention to you and pay attention to the floor. So when we're working engagement drills and teaching markers, the last thing that you want is for the dog to find more rewards away from you and less rewards on you. All right, so in this instance, I'm going to be using my training vest. It has a couple of different pockets. We have front pocket and a back pocket. I like to be super comfortable when I train, and I encourage everyone to also shoot for a level of comfortability where their focus is their dog and the training that they're doing. If you're not comfortable and you're dropping food, or you have to stop the engagement session to go grab food or dig in your pockets, that's only gonna distract your dog and probably make the engagement sessions not be successful. I'm gonna start by putting some food in my front pouch, in my front two pockets. And if I was using a training pouch, that I'll show you guys in a second, I'd fill it up, and once I close it, I'd attach it so that it sits behind me. That just prevents the dog from staring at my pouch, and I can reach back here, grab food, and hand it over to the dog. All right, so let's discuss the environment. In this training environment, it's a pretty big room. We have a lot of different training equipment. We have toys over here. And so if you have a new dog in a larger room, especially for professional dog trainers, make sure that you have a smaller room that you can work within with less distractions. And if you can't have that, then you should put a leash on your dog, typically a 10 to 15 foot long line, and we can troubleshoot through that. Another note on being careful in your environment, when I bring Lobo out here, he's gonna be off leash. This is typically how we train. I train my dog off leash. He's already at that level of training. One of the behaviors that I allow to happen is he tends to run over here and grab a couple of toys and then runs around. That's a behavior that I allow to develop and self-reinforce. Learn from my mistakes. Don't allow your dog to do that, especially in early stages. I feel like maybe Lobo learned this about 6 months ago. I ignored it. You know, I found it kind of goofy, but now it's like 100% of the time he runs over here and grabs a toy. That goes to show you how effectively they can learn behaviors, especially when they know what they can get away with. All right, guys, so we're going to start training. We're going to start off with a couple of dogs that have already built strong engagement and have their markers charged. I'll use my personal dogs. Then in the back end of this session, we're going to use dogs that are new to this with a new handler. That's going to allow us to show you the learning process and the learning stages of teaching engagement and markers. We're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so you can see the ritual that Lobo and I have. He tends to go check out the environment and interact with things that he enjoys up until when I call him. So he's already successfully grabbed the ball, which I was talking about. I'm just gonna take that and put it in my back pocket. He's also loves swimming, and there's toys up there. So he's already ran up there and checked out the deck to see if it is open so he can jump in the pool. So I'm going to call his name, and that's gonna cause engagement. Lobo, sit. Yes, all done. All done. He disengages. Lobo. Yes. Gonna put him in the sit here. Okay, so now he's in the sit and we're gonna start our session. I'm going to say his name and then a second later, I'm going to say yes. Lobo. Yes. 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 All done. There's a quick 3 reps. And again, when I say all done, he disengages. I don't want him to go mess with other things and cause me to re-engage. Lobo. Yes. 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 Good. Now we have a good there. Good. Get it. Yes. Get it. Lobo. Get it. Lobo. Get it. Lobo. Get it. Lobo. Yes. Good. All done. Lobo. Up. All right, so I've put my dog in the passive behavior so we can break down what's happening. I'm calling his name, and then I'm now saying yes, meaning that, hey, come and take food from me. As you can see, he's got a pretty strong response to that. Now we're gonna go over the step-by-step process of how to get that result. I'm gonna call his name and immediately say yes and reward him. We're gonna pretend he's a brand new dog, so I'll call his name and then say yes over and over and over again for a couple seconds, then and say all done. We want to do the same thing with good. And then we're going to do the same thing with get it. Lobo, yes. 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 All done. Lobo, good. Good. All done. Lobo, get it. Lobo, get it. Lobo, get it. All done. Up. Rest. So that was a quick demonstration of how Lobo handles engagement and markers. When I call his name and then immediately follow with another word and a reward, that tends to backchain, meaning it gives value to his name as well. So if you say his name and then you say, are you ready? And then you say yes, now it's a longer behavior chain that needs to take value. The shorter it is, the better, and it's more effective that way. Another thing to point out is Lobo's desire for food. Ever since he was a puppy, he's 8 weeks old, I've always worked and trained for his daily meals. And so it created a certain work ethic in him working for food, and therefore overall it just performs well for it. On top of that, I'm also using a high value food, which is the freeze dried, and he loves that. Also, it's first thing in the morning, so he hasn't had all of his meals yet. So he's hungry, he likes what I have to offer, and I have the work ethic that I built over a period of time. That's why he performs that way. When we discussed earlier in the module about making sure that your dog is hungry and that they enjoy what you have, this is the reason why. I can expect Lobo to have the intensity in his behaviors as his desire for food. So he has a lot of desire for food, so I want him to have a lot of desire to do the behaviors, including the passive ones. For example, this one right here. It is a down, it's not flashy, it's not intense. However, he does it with passion and with reliability simply because he knows I will reward him, kind of like I'm going to do right now. Good. I'm gonna do it one more time. Good. We're gonna go grab another dog and we're gonna demonstrate the exact same thing. All right, guys, so this is Rowdy, and as you can tell, Rowdy came out here and he knows what's going on. He's like, dude, I want your food. Rowdy loves food by nature, and now he knows that I have a ton of food on me that he really likes. I'm going to put him on a place. Look, Rowdy, place. Down. Good. Free. Let me refill. Yay. All right, guys, so I'm refilling the food here. And so Rowdy has a ritual, and dogs tend to build a ritual through training. Over time, I've become pretty habitual myself. I get the dog out, they run around, they come check in with me, and then we train. And they are usually hungry because I haven't fed them in the morning, and I'm saving their calories to train with them. And so therefore, they see Fabian as like fun, he's interactive, and he has my food. And then typically the food that I have is very yummy. That makes training these dogs very easy. And again, if I took Rowdy home and I overfeed him, which I've done to other dogs, they get kind of like lazy and bored about meals just because they shouldn't be excited about it, right? If they're overeating, just like anything else, they get bored of it. Having a good balance of exercise and diet has that effect on dogs where it just builds intensity and the desire to work for you, but also the desire to eat the food that you have. Another thing to note is that over the years, I've built a great relationship with Rowdy, petting him, throwing the ball for him, wrestling with him, using his food for training. All of that adds up to a dog that listens when we ask him to, right? And so that's why we outlined all of those things earlier in the module. So we're gonna get started with Rowdy. I'm gonna grab some food in my hands. Rowdy, yes. Get it. Rowdy, yes. Good, good, good. I'm gonna throw some flashy stuff in there. Yes. Get it. Rowdy, all done. And as soon as they say all done, his excitement drops, right? His excitement levels drop, mainly because he knows there isn't any more food coming immediately. So one of the things that I did poorly with him when he was a puppy, we made him too excited about training. So this engagement was not something that we promoted. To him, this engagement was, if I go mess with something, they're gonna give me attention and they're gonna call me back to eat food. Now that he knows I have food here, he doesn't want to disengage. All done. And that's very common, especially when you assume that all dogs are equal, and they're not, meaning that they all have different drives, different passions, find value in different things. And for him, food is the ultimate value. He loves food over frisbee, over the ball, over the pool, etc. Just us being in this environment is proof of that. So for example, he's not running up trying to get into the pool. He's not trying to grab a toy that's very accessible, kind of like Lobo did. He is standing here next to me waiting for food just because that's his priority of values. All done. I'm gonna allow him to disengage for real. All done. All done. All done. All done. He finally got it. So he's going to the next priority, which is the pool. Fabian's not gonna give me no more food, so I'm gonna go check to see if the pool's open. That's a very important thing to note. Dogs are always gonna tell you what they think and what they value. You just have to listen to them and really do the arithmetic to process the information they're giving. I like to call Rowdy a very selfish dog because he's only doing what interests him. And so if you have food, he'll be here, but he's like, oh, I don't have food. I'm gonna go up there. All done. All done. All done. And so I'll even move in his direction and just say, all done. All done. All done. Free. All done. Free. All right, I'm gonna come back to attention. Rowdy. Yes. Ooh, good boy. Yes. 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 Good. Good. Get it. Rowdy. Get it. Rowdy. Get it. Rowdy. Yes. Get it. Rowdy. Yes. Good. I'm gonna give him a behavior so I can demonstrate the good. Sit. Sit. Good. 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 Yes. All done. And one of the things you'll see with Rowdy as I ask him to stabilize and stay in behavior is he likes to whine, he gets whiny, and then he tries to anticipate what I'm going to ask him next. And that is because he's gotten a lot of yes, meaning, go get the food, come back to food, go get the food, come back to food. And to him, he loves food. And the harder you make him work for food, the more of an arousal state he gets. That's very important to remember. And that can happen to a bunch of different dogs. For him, we're going to wrap it up here, guys. And we're going to grab our last dog before we get into the new dogs. All done. All right, guys, so we have my little orange friend here. And so Frito's my wife's dog. He's got a lot of desire for food, loves ball, loves food, etc. So we're gonna use a couple of different markers with him and also use toy markers. Speaking of that, let me grab a little tug ball. And so all of these dogs are very high drive. It's a combination of the relationship they have with us. It's a combination of food and also the work ethic that we built into the dogs. You wanna make sure that you have a conditioning process. How do we build the dog's natural drives? Through a combination of exercise, food management, relationship building, so that you have the passion in the exercises, and then you also have the passion in the markers. The level of intensity that the dogs bring to taking food or playing the game is the level of intensity that they will have executing those behaviors. Frito. Yes. So I just recalled him with his name. He was digging around, and he is a maniac for food. Get it. Frito. Yes. He's standing in front of me. Good. Good. He's a dog you have to be careful with your fingers. Good. Get it. Get it, 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 get it. Good. All done. So something important just happened. I tossed a piece of food and the dog didn't know where it went. And so I just repeated the marker and pointed it out and made it easy for them. Just because I want to make sure that every single time I say good, yes, or get it, that there is an actual reward waiting for them. If you mark, you have to reward the dog. And that goes through their entirety of their lives. Frito. Yes. Good. Good. Yes. Frito. Place. Yes. Place. Yes. Frito. Place. Good. All done. Okay, so another interesting thing happened. Frito's a fast thinker and loves food and loves toys. So he's willing to anticipate that he's got it right. And so when I send him to a place board or to the place and rewarded him with a yes coming back to me, the third or fourth time, he didn't even want to step on the place board before he wanted to come back. That's what that yes does. If it's active repetitions, it makes it very exciting. It makes the dog anticipate and sometimes creates unstable behaviors. In order to stabilize that behavior, I use the duration marker, good, meaning you go over there and I will bring food to you. We're going to do that a couple times and we're going to see how that changes his response. Frito, yes. Place. Good. Place. Good. Good. Place. Place. Down. Good. Get it. I like to stay very technical with my training. If I say good, I want to bring my hand and my food all the way to the front of the dog and then allow them to have it. And when I allow them to have it, then I close it there. I want to make sure that he stays stable and is waiting for me until I release the food. We don't want dogs coming to us while we say good, because what ends up happening is that they make everything a yes. We say good and the dog comes to us and takes food, or the dog starts meeting us halfway, which ultimately hinders future training. So markers are games that you can use to further sharpen their skills. And this is something you'll do for the entirety of the dog's life. I don't do it very often. Maybe every 2 weeks, I'll take the time to do a full marker engagement session with my dog, simply when it's easy for them, it's an easy win, and it's very fun, as you can see. Cheater. Okay, so now let's reward with something else other than food so you can understand how this works. Frito, free. Frito. Yes. It's got a little face. It's got a little face. Yes. Oh, good boy. There you go. Good boy. And you can see he's very intense. I'm gonna come back to that. Come on, Frito. Oh, intense little guy. Very mean. Oh, okay. Okay. Frito, out. Get it. It's gonna bring it back to me. Very aggressive little man. Okay. Out. Place. Yes. There you go. That's how we use yes with a toy. Very intense little guy. Be careful here. Out. all done. And I'm going to put it away. And as you can see, using a toy brings out a completely different level of drive in him. And that may be your case at home. That may be the case for a dog that you're training. We want to make sure that at some point in your training, you master controlling that intensity and that overflow of power that dog brings to using a prey item or a toy for a reward. So we're going to wrap up with Frito here, guys, and we're going to bring out a couple of different dogs. Hey guys, we're getting ready to start a new training session with a new handler and a new dog. And so I wanted to cover a couple of things that you should really think about. Make sure that that new dog has food that they don't have to chew very much. So if we wanted to use some milk bones or something that's very blocky and they have to chew and then swallow, it's going to make the engagement session in charging markers a bit of a challenge simply because they might try to do it very quickly and they're going to choke. And so we don't want to capture any negative emotions or experiences while we're classically conditioning the markers and these cues. The next thing that we want to do is make sure you pick up all the food from the previous session and make sure that you're not dropping a lot of food. This is a new dog in a new environment. And so what's going to happen is that if they find food that is more accessible to them than it is with their handler, they will go with the food on the floor 100% of the time because it's self-serve, right? There's no reason to work for it. And so if that happens, they are going to start pulling towards food and they're going to pull harder and harder and harder. In this session, it's going to be one of the first sessions we do with the dog. So that means that we're going to keep them very short. And the engagement window that we open is also going to be very small. A couple of rewards and then all done. And a final thing, make sure you potty your dog before you start training sessions, just because you don't want any interruptions. Nothing's worse than having a dog that is anxious because they have to go to the bathroom, but then you're forcing them to engage with you or you're asking them to do too many things. It's a recipe for disaster. Make sure your dog's pottied and you focus the training and the session on the training and the goals you have to accomplish, not on worrying if the dog's gonna have to go to the bathroom or not. So we have Tamar here today. She's gonna be our new handler for this training session. And she's got a dog with her. Tamara, what's the dog's name?
Lily.
Lily. Okay. A big focus that I'm going to put on new handlers is making sure that they know how to handle the food. So don't grab a bunch of food, grab one piece of food and use that food to charge a marker. So you're going to get really good at grabbing one piece of food, saying the word and rewarding them, grab another piece of food, et cetera, et cetera. As time goes on, you want to make sure you can have 2 or 3 pieces of food on there and make them last a longer period of time. In order to do this effectively, you want to make sure that you don't drop food on the floor because it's detrimental to your training. That is something that is very common in dog training and it's very common with dog trainers. If you are dropping food, you're just making your training environment that much more difficult. So when do we get started? Tam, why don't you take your dog and walk her around and just let her check out the environment and stuff like that. And then whenever you're ready, you're going to call her name and then you're gonna reward with YES, okay?
All righty. Lily. Yes.
Yes again?
Yes.
All done.
All done.
Cool. She's got a
Lily. Yes.
she had a new person in the environment and I ignored that.
Yes. All done. Lily. Lily. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
All done. And why don't we go inside the fence?
Oop. All done. Come on.
Good. So Tamar did a very good job. Okay. So one of the things that we start to note is that some of the dogs may not know their names, right? And you have, for example, a dog like Lily that she hears her name and then there's a couple of seconds delay before she's like, huh, and then goes to the handler. And so we're going to take things a step back with her. And so Tam, what I want you to do is I want you to bring the dog in front of you, like you can lure her in front of you. As she's looking at you, you have the food in your hand. You're going to call her name and you're going to say YES. And you're going to call her name and immediately see YES. So essentially, you're capturing that final response right from the beginning. So if the dog doesn't know their name, one of the things that you should do or you can do is bring the dog in front of you. You have their attention. You say their name. You say the yes word, and you can give them food. For more advanced training, where we want to use less terms and less words, we can simply say their name and then food. Name and then food. Name, food. And so then that name will become a recall command, but also it's going to be a terminal marker. So we have to be careful about how we use that. For this instance, we're going to bring her, grab her attention. We're going to say her name, immediately see YES. And we're going to do that a couple times, very precisely. And we're going to say all done. And we're going to allow the dog to disengage. And the whole goal is for the dog to hear her name and immediately search for the source of who said it. So let's give it a go.
He said, put her in a sit.
Yeah, you can lure her.
Off. Lily, yes. Lily, yes. Lily, yes. All done.
Perfect.
Like that.
Exactly. Now do that again, but wait a little longer in between the name and the yes. Okay?
Off.
No sitting, no cues, no additional stuff. Wait it out.
Lily, yes. Lily, yes. Lily, yes. So when they jump, I still give the food because it's still acknowledgement.
You didn't say all done.
Right.
Right.
Lily, yes. All done.
Good. Okay, go back inside the potty yard. We're going to use a couple of those examples that you can go back and watch. Is that A, Tamar did not say all done. Just get used to building a habit of saying the dog's name, why yes, and then also saying all done. Now, very quickly, the dog understood that her name meant food, and you can tell her tail wag a little bit. When she would call her name towards the end, the dog jumped at Tamar a little bit, almost moving forward. And so Tamar asked, do we capture that? And I say, yes, capture that. Because eventually, we're not going to be standing right in front of the dog. We're going to be a couple feet away. And so we want that intensity, that desire to get to us, to still be there. And so we never want to deter it. We don't want to say no. If we're really dealing with a very clean, clear-cut approach to training her and charging her markers, what we want to do is, right from the gate, maybe show her some food. She's following the food. You don't say anything. She jumps on you. You don't say anything. You wait till all 4 feet are on the floor, and then you can say yes, or her name, and then yes. You lure her. You show her the exact position that you want her in. You say her name, and then you yes. We want to make sure that don't deter her. Don't say no. Don't say Ignore everything, because she will learn where to put her focus. When they learn where to put their focus and creates their success, they're going to do that 100% of the time. They say jumping doesn't work, pulling doesn't work, standing in front and waiting for engagement is the way to go. And that's always going to give me a reward. That's where they will put all of their effort.
Lily, yes. Lily, yes. Lily, yes. All done.
Cool. Walk her around, and we're going to see how much that's improved now.
Lily, yes.
Yay, good job.
Lily, yes. Lily,
Wait it out.
yes. All done.
Beautiful. All right, back in the fence. So that's the best way to show a dog. The first time that the dog ever hears my voice, it will have meaning. And that's just the approach that I take to all training, whether it's a rescue dog, whether it's a rehab case or a sport dog. I just like for all of my training sessions to be meaningful, and you can make them that meaningful by making sure that every word you always use, especially on the early stages, that they attach value to it. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to bring the dog out. We're going to bring Lily out. We're going to call her name. We're going to do 2 yeses, and then the third is going to be good. And you bring the food towards her, and you release it away from you. Okay? And we're going to do that. You can mix and match a little bit, since obviously we know she can progress. So let's do that.
Lily, yes. Lily, yes.
So remember, yes is away from you.
Good. Yes.
There you go. Back to good.
Lily, yes. All done.
Good. And I'm going to try, and she's going to come over to me and engage with me in the environment and count to 3 and call her back to you.
Lily, yes. Lily, yes. Good. Good. Yes.
All done.
All done.
Good. Okay, guys, so we're going to do the last part of this session, which is we're going to play a get it game. We're going to call her, and we're going to say get it in the opposite direction. she's going to go and get the food. Tamara's going to call her back to her and then say, get it in the opposite direction. So in the ideal scenario, the dog comes to me, I say, get the food that way. Once the dog eats the food, I call their name again, and then I say, get it that way. Once I play that for a little bit, I will say, Lily, yes, and she comes to me, and we'll give her a larger handful of food, and then we'll say, all done. Okay?
So drop leash.
Yep. So in this session, Tamara's going to drop the leash. So she needs to be a little bit more exciting and making sure that she can reward more often.
Get it.
So that the dog stays focused on her.
Get it.
So dog name, and then get it.
Lily. Get it.
Show her where.
Get it. Get it.
There you go.
Lily. Yes. All done. Yeah, good job, baby.
Okay, we're going to do that one more time here in a second.
What?
All right, let's do that one more time.
Lily. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Lily. Get it. Lily. Get it. Get it. Lily. Get it. Lily. Yes.
Beautiful. All done. And
All done.
put her back in the yard.
Come on.
All right, guys, so we're going to go over a couple of things that Tamar could improve on. And it's not just Tamar, it's a lot of trainers and a lot of handlers, is that we expect a lot very quickly. So for dogs like Globo and Frito and Rowdy, they all know that when I say get it, it's either a ball 20 feet away from them or a piece of food that they've now had practice getting, right? But when we first started, we're going to start off in like, a 2-foot radius. So we say, Lily, get it right there. And it's almost as I toss it, the dog picks up my hand, sees the piece of food leave my hand, and then grabs it. And so as time goes on, the distance will get further and further. One of the things that we can also do that Tamar did a really nice job at was tossing the food away from her and then calling Lily back and immediately saying yes. So we're practicing a recall there, we're practicing name recognition, we're practicing engagement, or we're also charging a marker. So that worked out really well. In this last part, I'm gonna work Lily and I'm going to troubleshoot a little bit of what she's struggling with. Okay, so now I have Lily out with me and I make friends with her right away. And typically this is what I do with all the dogs, especially if they seem eager to interact with people. I rub them, I get them check things out, I get them familiar with me. Lily, Lily, yes. Lily, yes. Lily, yes. Lily, get it. Lily, yes. Lily, get it. Lily, yes. All done. And so you see very quickly we can rapid fire these rewards, especially if the dog's able to keep up with them. And that will just make them so much more excited because the faster they can perform, the more rewards they can get. So we're going to bring her around. She's going to go up to the camera. Lily. She recognizes Tamar. That's a very nice job. Lily, yes. Ooh, yes. Yes. Lily, get it. Lily, yes. Good. 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 Lily, get it. Lily, yes. Yes. Get it. Lily, yes. All done. Good job, girl. All done. Yeah. Very nice job. She's a beautiful little puppy. We're going to grab another dog. All right, guys, so we have our new dog, Holly, here getting ready to train. We potted her in a little indoor potty area. And so Tamar and I were just discussing that it is really important that when you're first trying to train your dog, you make them love you. Like right now is not the time for discipline. This is the time for like build a relationship. And the more they love you and the more they think you're their buddy, which you are their buddy, you should be, but the more they assume right from the get-go, the more they're going to want to cooperate with you, whether it's for food, whether it's for toys, etc. There will come a time in future training that we will say, hey, you got to listen. And we're going to do that in a very different and approachable manner for the dog that is not creating conflict. But the whole idea that there's early on in training you should say, hey, don't let them jump. Hey, don't let them do X, Y, and Z. It's a bad idea, mainly because you're trying to establish trust. You're trying to build the dog's love for you. And so when you have that, you can then be more disciplined with them, right? And have a very balanced relationship. So it's really important in this early stages of training, do not deter the behavior. If it's reactivity, we're gonna get them somewhere where they can't see dogs. If it's human aggression, we're gonna build the bond with the person they're handling, and then we're gonna get the training. But in this sense of general obedience, we wanna make sure that the dog's amongst their friends and we're exchanging their attention for some compensation, and we're gonna scale from that. And you will have dogs that listen very well. This is gonna progress very nicely. This is a step-by-step process that will get you to where you want to go with the dog. Don't rush it. We will get to teaching behaviors, proving behaviors, and holding them accountable for not doing the behaviors. But for the time being, we're building engagement, we're bonding, we're building a relationship, and that needs to be fun. You ready? All right. So,
Holly. Holly. Yes.
yes again?
Yes. Yes. Holly. Yes. All done.
So one of the things that I was going to suggest to Tamar is make sure that she takes up more of the leash, meaning she has less slack on the leash while she's handling her dog, just because it's going to prevent it from getting in the way. So show.
Holly. Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Good. Good. Yes. All done.
Cool. That was a beautiful session.
All done. Holly. Yes.
Beautiful attention. This beautiful engagement.
Holly. Yes. Good. Good. Holly. Yes.
Beautiful. Let's
Well
switch to get it in the next rep. She's ready for that.
Get it. Get it. Get it.
Adjust to the dog. She's performing
Yes.
really well.
Holly. Get it. Holly. Get it. Yes.
All done.
All done.
Good.
Good job.
So all done. There you go. And we can let her disengage tomorrow. So all done. And she could walk her around and let her really disengage. Let her really think this is over. And we want her to truly disengage and not just assume that disengaging is a behavior that she's going to be compensated for. We don't want dogs to assume
Holly.
that.
Yes.
Beautiful attention.
Yes. Good.
You can get it a little further away.
Holly. Get it. Holly. Get it.
And then Holly, yes, back.
Holly. Yes.
Beautiful.
All done.
And see the next sets. See if you can do that and add a couple of goods in the middle for a behavior that you've lured, okay?
Holly. Get it. Holly. Get it. Holly. Yes. Good. Good. Holly. Get it. Good. Like that. Good.
Mm-hmm. All
Holly.
done?
Get it. Holly. Yes.
All done?
All done.
Good. Back to the potty area. All right, guys. Tamar did an amazing job. That was a really good session with the dog. Very minimal input here. One of the things that I will say is making sure that when we start building duration in the behavior using the good marker, we want to make sure that the dog stabilizes. So you can see Holly is a dog that moves very fast, thinks very fast. And so Tamar was able to adjust and use get it further away, call her back to her more enthusiastically, and just kind of play the game and adjust to the dog, which is wonderful. And we want everybody to do that, especially with their own dogs at home. The more you flow, the better the results. Now, when we want a dog to stabilize, when we say good, we want to wait an extra second or two. We ask the dog to lure into a sit. We're not luring behaviors yet, but the dog offered it. The dog sits there for 1, 2, 3, good. And then you give her a reward. You pull back, and the dog should stay there for, again, about 3 seconds, and then good. And so we want the dog to go from being frantic and excited to stabilizing and focusing, then getting marked with a good marker and receiving a reward. That's very important, because if we treat good like a yes, everything's going to start blending together and you're going to get yes performance for just about anything. So tomorrow, let's go ahead and give it a go again and make sure you implement just that change. When you're rewarding with a good, wait for the dog to truly stabilize. So the dog's good and the dog's sitting there waiting to get the reward.
Innocent.
And then you can start waiting for the sit for a little longer before you mark and reward.
Still doing get it to no.
Yeah. You can move her fast and then stabilize her.
Holly, get it. Good. Good. Holly, yes.
All done.
All done.
All right, back in her kennel.
Come here.
All right, guys, so there's something really important that happened there that I want to point out. So when Hanley gets into a sit, you can start seeing that her sit, her luring, she starts kind of like the tap-a dance there, and then we mark and reward that. We want to wait until that stops, and when that stops, we can then say good and reward, because then we're teaching the dog to do this in perpetuity, and so they will remember that. So when we're using a marker, make sure that the dog is stable, like stops doing this, stays there, mark, reward. And so I noticed at the beginning, she was off to the side, etc. So let's try to get her right in front of us and help her stabilize, maybe with a leash a little bit by restricting the leash a little bit, and then having her stare at the food and wait for those feet to settle. And you can tell based on her tail how she feels about the situation. Because if she's becoming a little erratic and a little unstable in the behavior, her tail's gonna be wagging super fast. And we want her to slow down that tail wag, focus, good, reward. Okay?
Holly, yes.
You're gonna wait it out.
Yes. Holly, yes. Yes.
Remember, use good, because we don't want to reward an excitable dog. Say all done?
All done.
Cool. All right, guys. So we set to reward a very stable behavior with a yes that promotes leaving the position and moving in the direction of the handler in a very excited way. And so that's a problem, because what we're trying to do is stabilize the behavior. We're trying to keep the dog there and saying, we will bring the food to you. And so if we ask the dog to stabilize and then we reward with something that's too exciting, what's going to happen is that the dog will then stay in an excited state and therefore not be able to settle further. So I'm going to work with Holly here and I'm going to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Nice job, Tam. Ooh, so I'm gonna... Holly, yes. Holly. Good. 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 Get it. Holly, yes. Good. And we see her tail slowing down. Good. 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 Get it. Get it, get it, get it, get it. Holly, yes. Oh, good girl. Yes. Yes. Good. Good. Her feet aren't moving any further. Good. Good. I'm gonna start losing her. Yes. All done. So you can say we started losing her. I don't want her disengaged by herself. So we're gonna wrap up the session here. But what I wanted to do is start slowing her down. If we were doing a lot of yes, what ultimately was going to happen was that she is gonna get stuck in that mode. And she's already a fast moving, very excitable dog. So if we train her in an excitable manner, we will make her a bit unmanageable. That's very important to note because sometimes dogs like this, through training, just become such adrenaline junkies that they're hard to manage even after training. So her training needs to be a little more calm unless she's going to sport, which we're putting a different foundation on a dog with more yeses and more activity. So we're gonna put her away. As a recap of this module, we want to make sure that you know that markers are something you're always going to play with and you're always going to use to exercise your dog or interact with your dogs. It serves as a very good activity to build that engagement and maintain it, whether you have an 8-week-old puppy or a 5-year-old dog. It's a good exercise and you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So get used to doing it. Additionally, when we're working on engagement, we're using the dog's name and then pairing yes with it for food, you're automatically teaching a recall. As we get into the off-leash portion of future modules, we want to make sure that this engagement is strong and reliable because it will make your training seamless and super reliable. Hey guys, we've reached the end of module 1. We hope everyone's had a ton of fun and learned a ton of things. We want to thank you for taking the time to watch this whole video. I cannot emphasize enough how important these concepts are to training the dogs to get the reliable results that you want. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we're happy to help. Until next time, guys, we'll see you guys in module 2, which is teaching behaviors.